Decisions, decisions. We make them all day long, and whether we realize it or not, constantly weighing pros and cons to make those choices can be exhausting. Timothy Caulfield knows a good bit about analyzing and weighing data to draw conclusions, and his new book may offer some respite. It's called Relax Dabbit, a user's guide to the age of anxiety. He's a professor of health law and science policy at the University of Alberta, and Timothy Caulfield joins us now from Edmonton, Alberta. It's great to have you on our program again. Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Not at all. How many decisions does the average person make in a day?
Well, depending on what study that you look at and how you kind of define decisions, it could be as many as thousands. Some of these aren't very conscious, but we bottom line, hundreds for sure.
Are people, when they feel stressed, do they tend to be more stressed than the circumstances would actually warrant them being?
I think that is the case, and I think there's good evidence to back that up. And we have to be careful again, when we look at the evidence here, because people feel stressful for different reasons and different circumstances impact different people in a variety of ways. But the bottom line is we live in an incredibly chaotic information environment, and I think there's a good body of evidence to suggest that chaotic information environment is having an impact on our level of stress and our anxiety.
Well, you could certainly argue that feeling more stressful in the middle of a global pandemic where, you may have friends or family who are COVID positive or who knows, even fighting death. I mean, that's a reasonable thing, isn't it?
Yeah, Steve, I think this is a really important point. Feeling anxious, feeling stressed is a completely normal human reaction. In fact, it's biologically wired. And so I think we need to be careful also not to overinterpret, those kinds of feelings. That's how humans should respond.
A lot of your books talk about how bad humans are at assessing risk, which you would think after millions of years we'd be pretty good at by now, but apparently not. Why are we not good at it?
Yeah, humans are terrible at it, Steve. We're terrible at assessing risk, and there's a bunch of reasons for that. One, we have this really strong negativity bias, and we're sort of hardwired to respond more strongly to negative news than positive news, and that makes biological sense, right? I mean, for most of human history, that's a good predisposition, right? You want to remember the bad stuff. There's interesting research that shows, for example, that humans respond much stronger to negative headlines than positive headlines. Negative headlines outperform positive ones. That's not going to surprise you. You're in the news. But that's just one example of how that can play out. In addition to that, there's been a lot of really interesting research to show how negative news on social media also results in a stronger reaction. And some really interesting recent research that highlights how, in the context of COVID, actually, Steve, that highlights how negative social media posting that is often incorrect, is misinformation, causes us to be more stressed out, and interestingly, may cause us to post more, right? So we have this horrible cycle that starts to form around how we're interpreting the content that we're bombarded with all the time.
I think you've just summed up the last 4 years in the United States in the last 1 minute of this program, but okay. Let's do this. I'd like to go through sort of a typical day that people watching us or listening to us right now may be experiencing and talk about the choices that they have, the decisions that they make in the course of a day. And I set this up by reminding myself that Barack Obama once said, I've got suits that are only in 2 colors, and I've got ties that are only in 2 colors, and I only wear white shirts, because I know I've only got so many good decisions to make during the course of a day, and I don't want to waste them on picking clothes. So with that in place, Timothy, let's do a bunch of true or false questions here. Number 1, waking up earlier is better for you than waking up later. True or false?
False. In fact, that's a really good example of how there's this pop culture belief that it's always better to wake up early. And you have all of these really good examples that are out there, these anecdotes, captains of industry, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who all get up ridiculously early and have created this myth that it's always good to do that. It's almost like this noble thing to do. You're going to be more productive. You're going to be more creative, when in reality, the science doesn't back that up at all. We each have our own rhythm, and we should try as best as we can, given the circumstances of our life, to follow that rhythm.
They don't say that the late bird gets the worm, though, Timothy, but the science doesn't back that up, eh?
That's right, and isn't it? It's a great example of this embedded myth. This myth has been around for a very long time, and I think it's tied a little bit to this, this idea, this Protestant ethic around waking early. But really, no evidence to support it.
Okay, next one. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and we should never skip it. True or false?
False. False. Now, this one's a little more complex, because I use this one in the book as an example of how the evidence is actually way messier than often portrayed. The evidence around, despite what we've heard over and over again, the evidence is actually less than clear on whether breakfast is good or bad. And by that, I mean by the impact it's going to have on how much you eat throughout the day. Weight loss is often tied to eating breakfast. But in fact, the evidence is less than clear. So you should really find a healthy rhythm that works for you, and that's relevant for when you wake up, but it's also relevant with respect to whether you have breakfast or not. And do you know, a lot of our belief in breakfast comes from Kellogg, the cereal magnate. He really, his advertising really helped fuel this idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Okay, next one. If you can, it's better for parents to drive their children to school than to let them walk. True or false?
False. False. That one's an easy one, and I think the evidence is actually pretty definitive on this. And I use that one in the book. That's a really good example of how fear can drive sort of an irrational choice. And also, it's a really good example of how our intentions often don't match what the evidence actually says. Because, of course, our intention is we want what is best for our kids. And Steve, what do you think the number one reason that parents don't let their kids walk to school?
Well, they're fearful of their safety or something like that.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. There's a relatively good body of evidence to suggest that stranger danger, the fear of the man in the white van, drives this, and the chance of your child being abducted or having some kind of criminal activity happen to them is so vanishingly rare, so incredibly rare, that you can categorize it as not going to happen. On the other side of the equation is the clear benefit that kids could get from walking to school: exercise, a little bit of independence, perhaps socializing with their friends. And Steve, even 20 minutes of quiet and peace, that can be beneficial also. So you have these clear benefits weighed against this fear, and it also really highlights how our availability bias. This fear is so horrific that any headline that confirms that fear is going to be remembered, and it's going to drive our decision.
Well, since I'm on such a roll here with asking questions that almost always end with false, let's try another one here. Cycling, generally speaking, is more dangerous than walking. True or false?
So, false, but it's close. You see me hesitating there.
Yes.
I think the better way to frame that, if I could, is that it's not hugely. There's not a huge difference here, and that also goes with driving your car. And it's, again, hard to measure this, and there are clearly dangers associated with cycling, especially if the infrastructure isn't there. But if you look at the numbers, walking probably is a little bit safer, but we're talking about a risk, an order of magnitude that is tiny, right? It's tiny. And so this shouldn't be driving your decision about whether to ride your bike or not. Now, listen, it's very context specific. Every city's different. Every infrastructure is different. But the reality is it's much more complex than often portrayed.
Sure, but there is this presupposition, probably mostly among non-cyclists, that cycling, particularly in a city, is an incredibly dangerous thing to do. Where does that come from?
That's right, and again, this a little bit of our confirmation biases. And the other thing that people think is, cyclists are horrible and dangerous, and they're interfering. There's actually been studies that have shown that in general, cyclists obey the rules more than drivers. I know that's hard to believe. They follow the rules more than drivers. And in addition to that, when they are breaking the rules, they usually break the rules for their own personal safety, whereas cars break the rules because of time. They want to do something that's going to get them to where they're going faster. So the reason that we think this is because we remember that maniac driver, cyclist, right? You know, the ones hopping, you know, the single speed guys hopping the curbs and stuff. That's the one we remember, right? And there's also this really fascinating research that shows that people think of cyclists as somehow they're free riders. You know, the road is for cars, and look, they're driving by me. That can't be right. They should have to wait too. And so it causes people to get aggravated, even though there's all this evidence to back up how beneficial active commuting is, how beneficial it is, not just for the person who's doing it, but also for your community.
Next one, we should all be drinking a lot more water. True or false?
You know, false. Unless you're thirsty. If you're thirsty, then you should be drinking. You know, the evidence tells us that this myth, this idea that we're supposed to drink 8 glasses of water a day has no real science behind it at all. You know, you should just drink when you're thirsty. Thank you, evolution. But we have this huge industry that has now built up around this idea that we're supposed to drink all the time. You know, we have special water, we have water bottles, we have a lot of fear mongering about tap water. Yeah, you drink when you're thirsty, and in most places you can just drink tap water.
Let's see if I can get a true one on the record here. Cat naps during the day are a good thing. True or false?
Can I? I'm going to say mostly false. Sorry. And this one's unreal. This one's unreal because we live now in an era where everyone thinks napping is good for you. Now, look. The reason I hesitated so long is because there are circumstances when napping might be a good idea. If you are really tired and you need to be wakeful for something that's you know, maybe you have a big presentation, maybe you have an athletic event, and you want to be ready to go for that. The problem with napping, despite what you hear in pop culture all the time, is that it can really interfere with your nighttime sleep, right? And so many of us have insomnia, or we're just not great sleepers. By the way, Steve, I'm one of those people. I'm not a great sleeper. And if you nap during the day, you can interfere with your nighttime sleep, right? If you are going to nap, it should be as short as possible, and it should be not close to when you're going to bed at night, right? So again, I think I'd categorize this, Steve, as the evidence is much messier, again, as often portrayed in pop culture, because right now naps are having a moment, right? It's portrayed as always good to nap, you're going to get all these benefits from it. And by the way, there is a little bit of evidence, correlational in nature, so we have to be careful not to overinterpret it, that long naps are actually bad for you. So again, the evidence much more complicated than often portrayed. Naps are not always good.
All right, let's do one more here in the hopes of finally getting to a true, but I got a feeling. Why do I have a feeling it's not going to happen? In our busy world, parents sometimes feel very guilty about the fact that they are spending, quote unquote, only quality as opposed to quantity time with their children, and they should feel guilty about that. True or false?
False. False. And again, you know, I want to be careful here. This is complicated stuff, and that's actually one of the longer chapters in my book, and I found the literature absolutely fascinating, and I hope the readers find this fascinating too. You know, despite the incredible guilt that parents, and I'm a parent, and I have this guilt, I feel this guilt, so I'm speaking from experience. Despite the guilt that we don't spend enough time with our kids, humans today spend more time with their kids than ever before. Well, at least, you know, since we've counted. So we're looking, let's say we'll go back 100, 150 years. Then because of this social pressure to do exactly that. And so that's number one. We are actually, despite this feeling, we're spending more time with our kids than we have in the past. And number two, there really isn't that much evidence to suggest that more is always better. You know, I understand that you may want to spend more time with your kids. I enjoy spending time with my kids, but it's not going to have this huge necessarily benefit on your children, even though that's the reason that we're doing it. We have this profound guilt that we should be doing it. So, again, you know, be careful about how you interpret the social pressures that are out there. And if I could say one more thing, one of the reasons we feel this way is because of social comparison. You know, social media, you know, there are all these unbelievably great parents out there, and they post about you know, all their special events with their kids, and you know, they're on the beach with their kids, they're going for a walk with their kids, they're playing a board game with their kids, and they're posting about it, and it makes us feel guilty. So I think this social comparison component to this story is also really important.
I suspect the pandemic has gone a long way to convince people they don't need to feel guilty about time with their kids anymore, because most of what I hear from parents these days is, I love my kids, but I've really had enough at this moment. Anyway, be that as it may, we move on. There are people who love to tell other people how busy they are. Busy braggers, I guess you'd call them. What does that sound like?
Busy bragging, oh, good to hear from you. How you doing, Tim? I'm doing great, but so busy. And and you know what, Steve? Despite the fact that I researched this section, I researched time management for the book, I know the reality, I still do it. It's become this social tick that we have when we're communicating with people. We always say we're busy. And the interesting thing is it's kind of true in that we do feel busy. And this is what I really highlight in the book. We do feel busy. And that's partly because I think we carry our office around with us in our pockets, right? We can always be on email. We can always be on social media. So we always feel like there's something we could be doing. Layer on top of that, this busy brag kind of social norm that has emerged that says if you're not busy, if you don't feel busy, you're not, accomplishing enough, right? Feeling bored is horrible. You should never feel like you have leisure time. So we have that kind of social norm emerging out there. The reality is in the aggregate, and there's a caveat here I want to come back to, in the aggregate, we have more free time now than we have for decades. For decades, right? We actually have more free time. Now, the big caveat is, look, I absolutely know there are sectors of the economy out there that are incredibly busy. There's single parents that maybe have 2 jobs, incredibly busy. So I'm talking about sort of, in the aggregate, and sort of an invitation to ask people, how busy are you really, right? And is it should you really feel this sort of guilt that you're not working all the time?
No, we understand that particularly during a global pandemic that doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, first responders, people who are stocking the shelves of our supermarkets, we understand that they are busier and more occupied than normal. You're talking about generally speaking here. And okay, give us some advice here then. The next time you bump into somebody or you get onto an elevator and there's another person in the elevator, which almost never happens anymore, but okay, somebody says to you, "Are you busy?" Which is what people get asked, a dozen times a day. What's the right answer?
I think the right answer is if you are busy, say you're busy. But you know what? You probably aren't. So say, things are okay. It's the usual. So that's what I try to say now. It's funny though, because I even think about those in the book. I joke about those Christmas letters that everyone writes. And in those Christmas letters, everyone is so incredibly busy. They're sequencing the genome. They're plotting a trip to Mars. No one ever says, we didn't do much this year. Junior is spending 8 hours a day on social media. I've watched a lot of Netflix. It was a fun year. No one ever says that, right?
Well, let me pick up on that, Tim, because if there is one thing more people have done more of in the last 9 months, it's binge watch TV. What have you learned about the practice of binge watching TV over the past 9 months?
Steve, I'm glad you asked me that. I loved writing this part of the book. I found there's actually research on binging, which I didn't know until I started researching the book, and there's experts out there. So what I found is that, and I have bingers in this house, by the way. When you binge watch a TV show, you actually get less enjoyment out of it. Look, I appreciate it's hard to study this kind of phenomenon well, but bear with me. You get less enjoyment out of it as opposed to spreading it out. So if there's this show that you love, and if you binge it all in one day, you actually enjoy it less. And they've done studies where you don't remember it as well, and you can't do sort of a critical appraisal of the show as well as someone who has sort of parsed the show out over time. In addition to that, there are sort of some health concerns with binging. It's sedentary behavior that's associated with not eating well. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why maybe you shouldn't, binge all the time. Maybe it's a treat. And by the way, I'm probably going to binge tonight, so I'm a hypocrite.
Well, then I've got to ask, what are you binge watching tonight?
You know what? Cobra Kai. I discovered. Have you heard of this show, Cobra Kai? Our whole family loves it. It's a reimagining of the Karate Kid. Remember the Karate Kid? So maybe it's a little bit nostalgia for me. So they're revisiting all the characters right now. Super clever, kind of sweet, a little bit of edge.
If you want something completely the opposite, like not sweet, not for the whole family, Your Honor. I just started watching that. That is a crazy, intense, difficult show. But you got to be in a different kind of mood for that one. Okay, Tim, let's do this. We're going to do a quote from your book here. This is from Relax Dabbit. I realize that relying on evidence isn't the only way people make decisions, but I think that a journey through a typical day of decisions will allow us to recognize that more often than not, we can relax. It probably doesn't really matter as much as we think. In a world where information is increasingly twisted for commercial, ideological, and personal gain, finding a path to the objective truth on any topic, from toothpaste to toilet seats, can be difficult, but the path does exist, and finding it can be liberating. This, when I read that, it sort of reminded me of the former, I think she was a child psychologist, Barbara Coloroso, who used to give parenting advice and saying, if it's not life-threatening and it's not health-threatening, just let them do it. How do we find that path, though, to a more relaxing us?
Well, in the book, I really try to invite people to kind of ignore the noise, or watch that noise and enjoy the noise in a little bit more of a removed manner. There is so much noise out there, and we can usually ignore most of it and just focus on those science-informed basics. And so that really is what the book is an invitation to do. And I try to provide people with sort of the critical thinking skills to do that. And I do try to point people in the right direction. And look, as you know from the book, I don't try to tell people how they should lead their lives. And almost on the contrary, often the conclusion is, you should do what works for you, right? And ignore these pressures and this conflicting information that is constantly stressing us out.
It's tough on those of us who aren't scientists, though, because we hear about so many studies that tell you to do one thing, and then, frankly, your book is telling us, that's really not true. What's a poor non-scientist to do?
Yeah, you're right about that, because so often you'll see these headlines that say, this is the answer, coffee's bad for you, coffee's good for you. When one of the things I do is I always invite people to remember there's a body of evidence out there. And especially when you're talking about something like health, it's never going to be one study. It's never going to be, one animal study in particular. You have to talk about a body of evidence. So always ask yourself, what kind of evidence are they using to make this claim? And I give people sort of a checklist of things that they can go through, like, is it an animal study? Is it just an observational study? Is it a small study? If it's any of those kinds of things, it's not going to be definitive. And always remember there's this body of evidence that is sort of nudging us in the right direction, and that's probably what you should follow.
Well, I got to hand it to you. Whoever comes up with the titles of your books is doing a heck of a good job, because I don't know if it was the last one or the one before, The Science of Celebrity or Why Gwyneth Paltrow is Wrong About Everything. That was a catchy title, and so is this one, Relax Dammit, a user's guide to the age of anxiety, which has brought Timothy Caulfield to our virtual studio tonight from the University of Alberta. Tim, good to see you again, and thanks as always.
Thanks so much for having me on, Steve. Really enjoyed it.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.